Hi there. In my previous video, I described how I took a class in remote viewing and my surprise at how well it worked.
This is not luck.
Here, I'll go over another one, and this time in more detail, to show you how easy it is and how well it works. This particular remote viewing target was created by a fellow classmate as a practice exercise. Here's the way it works. She created this target number and emailed it to me. That's all I have. But she also wrote out what this target number represents, which we can now show you, the viewing audience. I don't know that. All I have is this number. And I'll use my remote viewing techniques, the ones I learned in class, to perceive and describe it. We agreed beforehand the target object would lie somewhere in my house or car. So once the target becomes revealed, I can study it up close and compare it with my written perceptions. Everybody perceives remote viewing information differently. Some people perceive through their body, hands, or mental visions. I perceive through something similar to hearing. My remote perceptions seem dictated. I hear them, like mental whispers or recalling a memory. I write whatever I hear. Words, mispronunciations, even words slurred together. This is important, as you'll see. The session starts with a scribble, which is supposed to represent a high-level overview of the target object, which at this point, remember, is unknown to me. This one sort of looks like water. Now I open myself to perceptions. I listen to the quiet in my mind. To dramatize my subconscious interactions, I'll use a different voice.
Equestrian.
Equestrian may be a false start, since we have nothing in the house related to horses or riding them, so I'll put this word into the discard column.
Wavy. Touch. Kind of like water.
These all sound more typical.
Look inside. Bacteria growing. Likely.
I haven't a clue what these represent. At the moment, I'm literally just copying down the words that pop into my mind. Pretty easy.
Nature's paradise. One of a kind. Hold together. Legitimate bounds. Taken together.
I'm not trying to understand what it's talking about here. You probably have a better idea than I do at this point.
Right side. Margin. Total effects. Name brand. Off the shelf. Likely. March of time. Highlights. Stain. Rough-like. Sandpaper. Taken together.
That was the last perceptive for this page. Now for the next step, I try to convert my subconscious perceptions, the words and phrases I've written down, into sketches of real things and descriptions. Wavy and touch. These two seem to go together, and I'll represent them with a couple of wavy lines. Kind of like water. This suggests not only water, but some sort of container. So let's draw that and label it. Look inside, bacteria growing, and likely also seem to go together. This is something I've learned about my subconscious already. It gives separate clues that seem to go together during this sketching phase. Let's draw an arrow and label it. Since I can't tell exactly where the bacteria is, I'll put these words off to the side in a box. The next few perceptives I had to figure out some sort of representation. These were nature's paradise, one of a kind, hold together, legitimate bounds, and taken together. They seem to be describing some sort of container, so let's draw that and put some nondescript stuff in there. And I'll label the container one of a kind and holds together. It was also described as legitimate bounds. Whatever's inside, it seems to be calling nature's paradise. I presume this means there are many different things inside. For right side and margin, that implies there are two sides. So let's draw a left and right side and label the margin. Now there's something after the margin, so let's put a nondescript shape there. And let's label that name brand. And apparently it's an off-the-shelf item. Now to represent march of time, I suppose I should draw a clock. And an arrow showing that time is advancing. And for highlight stain, I'll need a surface to put the stain on. Then draw the stain. And indicate the stain feels rough, like sandpaper, and is visible in highlight. Okay, let's review. It seems I got a lot of good perceptions on this page, now knowing the target was our bathroom faucet. Let's go over this page. We're going to learn a few things about the subconscious here, starting with what is the subconscious? Everyone agrees remote viewing is done through the subconscious. But what is that exactly? Is it just a quiet version of your conscious mind? Does it have memory? Does it think or make decisions like your active mind? Does it regulate your heart rate? Is that the subconscious? Well, let's see what we can infer from this session so far. Seems pretty obvious, but my mind and body cannot describe something it doesn't know anything about, like what this remote viewing target number represents. But since I got many accurate perceptions in this session, and my conscious mind didn't even know what it was, the information I wrote down must have come from outside my body. That must mean my body and brain must act as receivers of information. My subconscious provided some nice details about the target, but that object was only known by my fellow classmate. She created the target ID number, defined what it was, and sent me the ID. So my subconscious must have discovered what the target was. But how? I can think of two ways. We either all share the same subconscious mind, like we all stand in an ocean of subconscious, or we each have separate subconscious minds that can connect. Since I asked my subconscious to get descriptions about the target object, and it did so, this indicates the subconscious can be directed by your goals and desires. And while not a feature of this session, other remote viewers have received correct perceptions about things in the past, present, and future. People play the stock market and gather archaeological information using remote viewing. This indicates the subconscious mind appears to encompass all time and space. It can therefore be described as omnipresent. Some of my perceptions seem to be instructions to group several line items together. For example, look inside, bacteria growing, likely. Hold together, legitimate bounds, taken together. Name brand, off the shelf, likely. My subconscious realizes I can only receive and take down perception fragments in the form of words, and it's taken this fact into consideration by telling me how to rebuild more complete thoughts using words like taken together and likely from my written fragments. Well, taking something into consideration indicates intelligence. And since it can remember things it mentioned in the past and group them together, this indicates the subconscious has some amount of memory. Now, if you think about it, there's no reason why an omnipresent personality, let's call it that, since it has intelligence and memory, there's no reason why it should have the same point of view as a human, or describe things from a human point of view. We spend our lifetime learning how to describe things from our point of view, so it might do the same, viewing everything from an entirety we can hardly understand. So check this out. Some of my perceptions are oddly phrased. For example, it called water nature's paradise, and our plumbing legitimate bounds, and the faucet valves total effects. These are odd descriptions, but nevertheless accurate. And this hints at what I was just talking about. An omnipresent view will perceive and describe things differently. So just by analyzing the data I've received here, we've come up with a very interesting list of attributes for the subconscious. So let me know in the viewer comments if you think this list is on target, or if you think there were other attributes I missed during the analysis.